Welcome. We'll be starting at the bottom of the hour. Welcome, everyone. We'll be starting the webinar at the bottom of the hour. Well, welcome, everyone. We're so happy that you are joining us for GP Payroll Year-End Close 2023. Our speaker today is Debbie Gernitz, who is a senior business consultant for LBMC Technology Solutions. She has experience as a CEO, a controller, a budget administrator, an accounting manager, financial analyst, and MIS director. She has also owned her own business, which she founded right out of college after graduating from Lamar University with a BS degree in accounting and computer sciences. So we're very happy to have Debbie presenting today. A couple of housekeeping notes. If you are here for CPE credit, you must answer all of the poll questions. Secondly, if you have any questions for Debbie, please use the Q&A function. If you hover either on the bottom or at the top, it's different for different browsers. You will see that Q&A option. So please enter your questions there if you have any. And following the webinar, within 48 hours, I will be sending out an email with a recording of the webinar, the slides, as well as a link to a survey that we would be so very happy if you completed. And then with regard to the CPE credit, that will be coming by a separate email, and please allow up to 2 weeks to receive that. So without further ado, Debbie, the session is all yours.
Well, thank you. So quickly, the agenda, just some important notes you need to know. The pre-year-end task, steps to create and reconcile the year-end wage file to payroll records, other payroll tips that might be helpful for you, alignment issues when you're trying to print those W-2s, rate changes, and there's any questions at the end. If you don't ask them as we go along, we leave some time at the end for any questions. And the slide deck, when you get it, there's me about LBMC. I do not get into that, but I just threw it in there just so if you wanted to read, you have that opportunity. So a couple things that are important. You're going to be getting some handouts. In the handout, yes, you're going to get this PowerPoint. You're going to get a PDF of the PowerPoint. You're going to get another handout that basically takes everything in here and makes it kind of like a checklist that you've done all the steps. And you'll be getting an Excel file to help you reconcile your year-end wage files. So if you don't get the email because it's too many attachments or it's too large or something like that, please reach back out to us and we can resubmit it maybe in 2 pieces. But those things are coming to you after this presentation, so you do not have to have writer's cramp trying to write notes down. All right, that being said, let's move on to important notes. All right, so I'm not giving you this in a legal capacity. This is the things that I've found online and things that I have discussed with other CPA firms, and these are the rules that we know. So in general, I say this every year, that if the Social Security's or Medicare tax rates don't change for the new year, you could choose to do a payroll or 2 in the new year before you pull that year-end tax table and get it put in. So that being said, that's not true. Things are changing this year. So we need to be wary of that, as there are changes in the rates and what's going to be taxable. So 2024 does have changes. Your federal, state, and withholding rates would still be last year's rates, but in most cases would be materially correct if you did not change it. If you ran a payroll or 2 with the rates that are in there, the probability of somebody maxing out their Medicare or Social Security information in the first month is not highly probable. So that being said, could you leave things alone as you're working on your year-end wage file before I put in the new tax rates? The answer is yes. But if you need to install them before creating your year-end wage file, you have to make sure that you fix the FICA Social Security rates and limits prior to pulling that file. So this is the location to go do that. I'm not going to read out all these locations. You'll be having this PowerPoint and you're also going to have the printouts. So this is the location that you would go and do that change. When you're ready to update your tax tables, you can do this yourself. And I'm going to go through the steps to do it. So you have to log in as the SA user. There's a location to go and have the file put in for you so you don't have to key anything. You want to choose the automatic method and then follow the instructions on the screen. Something that you need to know for this automatic method is your registered telephone number for your GP instance with Microsoft. If you do not know that, reach out to us because we could pull it and give it to you so that you can have that phone number that you have to key in. So it only needs to be installed one time on one computer. And you want to verify that the new tax rate table is in. So you're going to go back to the location where the payroll tax is, and you're going to look at the upper right-hand corner and see if it's changed. Now, what I like to do is I kind of skip down to that verify and I go look at it prior to ever going in and check for tax updates and run that automatic method, because then I know what it says now in the upper right hand corner, run the process, and then I can see what it says in the upper right hand corner again post running the process. Microsoft steps are just what's on the screen, but I personally throw them in a secondary step. I go back and go to verify, run it first, and then I start the process to do the update. But that's my personal choice. The release date is normally in a December date. So I know that it has come out, so we should be ready to start pulling it in when people want it for the new year. So there's payroll tax update notes. If you get errors, your next step is to work with your IT, get on the SQL server and trying to do it on the SQL server. Or you can contact customer support for LBMC to get assistance. You can open a ticket with the LBMC ticketing system if you have access to the ticketing system. And if you don't have access to it and you want the emails to come back to you, write tech help at LBMC, because when they open the ticket, you will be the ticket owner and the emails and the station will go directly to you. If you don't have right to the ticketing system and you give it to somebody else to do the LBMC ticketing system, the emails are going to be going to them, not to you. So if you want to track a ticket, go and you're not in the ticketing system, write tech help, and when you're talking to one of us, tell us to please add you to the ticketing systems. So going forward, you can open a ticket on your own. So there's tax table updates can be done manually or with the SQL script if it doesn't work to use the automatic method. I'm telling you personally, doing all those tax table updates by hand and having to open all that up is very painful, especially doing the federal taxes, because you have to do all the different rows or where the tax breaks are for every row. And it's very tedious work. So if you reach out, we normally have a SQL script that we can run if the automated doesn't work. And also when we try and your automated process doesn't work, sometimes we'll try our telephone number to see if we can get it to work using ours. So we have a couple of ways that we can try to get in before we ever run SQL scripts. So during the year, it's a good idea to get the tax updates because different states will send out updates throughout the year. And you want to be able to pull those in to make sure that you're taxing correctly. So it's a good idea to do it. But we recommend never doing it after 12/15, which is normally by then the new tax rates. The automatic system is loaded with the new information for the new year. So we try to tell y'all don't do it after 12/15 because you want to try to do your last checks and create your year-end wage file before you bring in the 2024 or the next year's tax rates. So what I just said is they normally come out around the 12/15. So that's very important to remember that. You don't want to update these tables until you're done processing the 2023 checks. We normally want you to validate the 2023 year-end wage file before installing this. But if you have to do this, then the new Social Security Medicare maximums are not changing. The timing doesn't really matter. But remember, this year they are changing, so they are sensitive, and we need to make sure that we get all the checks ran and pull files before we put in that new tax rate tables. It doesn't have to be finalized, but you want to at least pull your baseline report to start reconciling with. So there is new code out there. The payroll year end needs to be installed prior to building and calculating and printing checks for your first checks dated in 2024. So you want to make sure that you've done these steps in the correct order because you want the correct taxing to happen on your checks. So if you've had to install and get the tax rate tables out there, and we are getting ready to print your checks in the new year, and you still have not created your year-end wage file for the old year, what you want to do is go in and update the FICA, Social Security, Medicare manually back to the prior year. So 2023 is an example for what's happening right now, to the maximum temporarily while you pull the wage file. And then you want to go back and put the 2024 rate back in. I suggest making screenshots of what it is for 2023 before I put the tax rate on, new tables on, and then make a screenshot post adding the new tax rate tables, because then I have pictures and know exactly what it needs to look like when I change it back. But that's what I like to do to myself, because I'm one of these people that have to have it all documented, or it drives me crazy. So you want to verify whether there is a new year-end service pack update to be installed. If there is a year-end update and you qualify to need it to be installed. Now, where the qualifying comes into play is if I have payroll, and you're in this call, so y'all would have payroll, then I'm going to want to have it installed. And yes, there is a payroll year-end service pack that's out there. It doesn't have to be done necessarily by 1/1, but it does need to be done prior to creating the year-end wage file and prior to updating the tax tables. And it's very important to know that the year-end update and updating the tax tables are two separate items. And I tell people, if I'm going to be having us update your system to get that year-end update on, you might as well ask for us while we're in to update the tax tables for you, so it's all taken care of. But please, before anybody installs anything on your system, like the service packs, you want to make sure that it is compatible to all of the companion products or third parties or customizations that you might have in the system. Because it's been known that if it hasn't been checked out, you could start getting error messages in the third parties or in the customizations that are out there. So be wary and make sure that you ask us prior to trying to install the service packs if you're doing it yourself, so we can verify that everything that you have will still work, adding that year-end update. Or if it's customization, sometimes something has to be tweaked in it, and we update it, we install it, and you're off to the races. So it's real important to check with us to make sure that nothing's going to crash your system or make things start erroring out and getting all those error messages on your computer. Employers may require to report the aggregated cost of employer plus employee portion or COBRA premium of a group health insurance on the W-2 box 12 code DD. And recently it is true that it needs to be done, but you need to visit the IRS website, and it gives you the official rules on the different codes. If you need assistance setting up benefit codes in GP Payroll, let us know. Most people already have all these things set up, but it is a good refresher to go look to make sure that everything is set up, especially if you set up new codes for some reason, to verify that everything is set up correctly. If you haven't been calculating pulling the 12DD benefit and having it on the benefit record, and you need to get it fixed, the easiest way to fix it is a one-time manual check adjustment. Beginning balance type will be required, and you can set up the codes, and then you assign it to the employees, and then you go in and do these manual checks to get them updated to the amount they need to have. Or you can manually enter this information directly in the Edit W-2s window. let me explain something. If you do it directly to the Edit W-2 windows and you decide there's something else wrong and I need to go back and rebuild that year-end wage file, it wipes out all the edits you've done on the W-2s. So if I'm never going to go back and rebuild that year-end wage file, then editing the W-2s is perfectly fine. And you're not going to have to redo other work. But if you rebuild it, you will wipe out all edits that you've done to your W-2. So keep that in mind when editing W-2s. Also remember that in the editing, you might edit somebody's address to get it to fit inside the maximum characters that are on that window. So if you make those changes there, you would want to make sure that you made like type changes over on their employee record so that next year you don't have to edit again. So you want to make sure the GP user date is a date within the new year while building, calculating, and printing checks. So if I'm in 2024 and I'm trying to run 2024 checks, I need to make sure that my date in the bottom left-hand corner is correct. If you don't do so, it's going to cause your FICA tax to be incorrect for employees over the limits, and it's going to update the summary tables for the incorrect year. So watching your date is very important. What has happened to people before is they pull the year and wage file, and I changed my date to be 12/31/2022 because it was last year, right? In January of 2023, they forgot to change their date back and ran a batch of checks. And it said December 23 is my user date. So that user date is being used to stamp transactions, and it will go to the wrong year if my date in my bottom left-hand corner is not correct in GP. So closing of payroll is independent from all other GP modules. And what we're saying is, let's say that I had sales order processing and I have accounts receivable. So closing AR is dependent on sales order processing already being closed. And then I can close AR. So payroll is not like that. Payroll's on its own. I close my payroll and it does not affect any of the other modules doing their year-end close. So we're going to stop and do poll question 1.
All right. Here we go. Poll question number 1. The best part about the holidays is, and you may select all that apply. If you are here for CPE, you must answer all poll questions. It works as a way to confirm that you've been active and at the webinar throughout. Great. All right, I'm going to be closing up the poll. And I'll share with you that food, family, and lights are crowd favorites, closely followed by time off. Back to you, Debbie.
Okay. So we're going to start with pre-year-end tasks that need to be taken care of. So our steps for doing this are, you need to purchase those W-2 forms and the envelopes they go with, right? You need to install the year-end update service pack as soon as it's released by Microsoft Business Solution Support. And it has been released, and I'm assuming most of y'all have already reached out to get us to get it installed for you. But if you haven't, y'all need to start reaching out. You need to go to Magnetic Media, and you need to get on their business service online. I gave the location where to find it. And you need to update your password because normally it's expiring. This year, Social Security and IRS are being hammered because of the 1099s. If you have more than 10 records for W-2s, 941s, 940. So basically, if you have more than 2 employees, you're required to do magnetic media, because the 941s count as 1 record, the 940 counts as a record. 2 employees plus their 2 ACAs gets me up to 9. So if you bust over 2 employees, like 3, you now are required to do magnetic media. Everybody, if you have payroll and you also have 1099s, you're required to do your 1099s electronically as well. We had a session about those tax issues as well. And you can reach out. We can get y'all the PowerPoint that goes along with that and the instructions about getting things for your 1099s taken care of. But realize that it's going to be slow going to get into the queue, and you sit there for quite a while. I reached out a couple of weeks ago to get some information, and I was in the queue for over 2 hours just needing information. So be prepared to sit on queues to get your stuff updated if you cannot update it yourself at the location when you log in. So starting early to get that done is going to be a very helpful for yourself, so you're not wasting a lot of time. Now understand, when I was doing this, they were gearing up for a holiday, so who knows, they might have had a lot of people off work, but I've heard other people say that they've sat on queues for over an hour to get help. So just keep that in the back of your mind about getting that piece done. You want to be able to record non-cash taxable benefits included on the W-2s, if you have any. So we want to verify the W-2 box numbers and labels. So if you look on the bottom of these windows, I have a picture of a deduction and a picture of a benefit. In the bottom right-hand corner, you would choose a deduction code or benefit code, depending on which window you're on. And at that point, you're going to look at the bottom right, and it says W-2 box and W-2 label. Make sure that those are filled in for the different things that need to show up on your W-2s. Your insurance, your 401k, 401k loan, whatever it needs to be that I need to show up on here, then I'm going to go in and make sure those boxes are filled in. To be able to get the proper labels, here's a website where you can go get their publication to know exactly what needs to be in those boxes. The most common ones are 401k, disability benefits, etc., that you need to have the codes on. And I gave you the locations of where to go get to the master windows and fix these. I also have a smart list builder report that I've put together that basically shows my employee in the company, how it's supposed to be set up, so that you can look prior to running your year-end wage file to see if an employee is not set up and matches how my company is set up, because those will be your problem children when you're reconciling your year-end wage file. So you want to verify your federal, state employer ID numbers, because this stuff needs to print on your different forms. So you have to go to the different codes and put in the tax code ID number. So we need to make sure our boxes are marked properly for statutory employees. So you'd have to do that on each employee's records to make those changes. If you have a lot of changes and you need help getting the changes in, there are things that we do. There's myself and a couple others that are the payroll people at LBMC. We have scripts if y'all give us files so we can go in and update some of this that you're not having to do employee by employee updates. So keep that in the back of your mind. If you're finding things and there's lots of changes, and I do not want to sit there and make lots of changes, we have scripts that, as long as we have files from y'all, that we can go in and update some of this in the back end for you so that you don't do it by hand. You have to make sure that you set up the fiscal periods for the new year. A lot of times the people that run payroll don't have rights to do anything administration. So that's when you're going to go over to the finance team, CEO, the controller, somebody, CFO, anybody that has rights to get to administration can make this change and get that new year set up. But you cannot do your first payroll in the new year if I do not have the year set up. So you want to complete your final paycheck run for the year that you're in. So when I'm going to build that year-end wage file, I need to plan to have users out when the file's being created. What I tell people is either declare early morning, lunchtime, or after hour time so I can go in and build the file. Most of the people I work with will tell people to go have lunch, get out of Great Plains, go have lunch, and you can get back in an hour when you get back from lunch. And they build it during the lunch hour. But you want to have nobody in the system when you're doing this. You need to be prepared to do some backups throughout the day or after any process that might take you a long time to redo. So maybe I want to do a backup as soon as I finish doing my year-end wage file. Or maybe I want to do it before I do my year-end wage file. But having a backup, at least we can capture the changes you've made in those W-2 files and help you update anything that you might have changed and get it back into the production database that I happen to key it again. So having those backups means you have tables with data that we can get to help you get back to the position you were before if you've had to rebuild a year-end wage file. So having those backups will save you time in the long run. So we're going to stop and do poll question 2.
Awesome. Here we go. Poll question number 2. We could use help from LBMC Technology Solutions with the following, and you can choose more than one here. We've got updating our version of GP, business process review. If you haven't had a business process review done in the last 2 or 3 years, you probably should think about that, but after that's completed, you'll discover ways that you can get more and more and more out of your system investment. Mapping our journey to the cloud and not sure. So looks like a lot of people are looking to map their journey to the cloud. And we've got a few people who are interested in a business process review as well as upgrading their version of GP. So Debbie, back to you.
So working on, let me go back a slide. Sorry about that. I did too far again. Easy with the button. There we go. Steps to create and reconcile the year-end wage file to payroll records. This is where the fun comes. So you want to back up your company database. And this is normally performed by your IT department. But for those that have offsite IT and can't always get a hold of them, we have access to most of y'all's systems. Or y'all can share your screen and we can gain access that way. We can help you with the backups if you cannot get somebody in your IT department to help you. Okay, so just keep that in the back of your mind as well. So you're going to need to back up all your databases using payroll and the Dynamics database. The Dynamics database happens to be the one that holds your payroll tax tables. So that's why the Dynamics is also on the list to back up. We normally label them with something like pre-year-end payroll. And some people get very creative. They don't want the long names. They might do PYE, PR for payroll underscore in the database name ID that's in the SQL. And that's how they save it, so they know what they are. And then you want to make sure that you save them in a nice location that's not purged after the limit on the server. Most companies these days will say I'm keeping 3 days, 3 to 5 days of backups on the server. And if you leave it in that folder where it says if the file is dated and it's after so many days, it goes away, these pre-backups will disappear. So we suggest making a secondary folder and putting those pre-year-end payroll backups elsewhere so it does not get purged out in their automatic purging system that goes on. So we need to print the pay code summary, deduction summary, benefit summary, state and local tax summary information. And this is where you'd go and get it. And notice the date range. I want it from January 1 through December 31st of whatever year you're closing. And then I need to have my quarter end reports. So notice I say have what you reported for quarter 1 through quarter 3 handy. We need those exact numbers that you turned in, and then would print the 941 for quarter 4. So we need to move payroll transactions data into the year-end wage file. This is the year-end closing part. So I'm going to go with that year-end closing window, make sure I choose the correct year, and hit the process button, let it run. Notice mine says 2027. It's because it's the virtual database that I had to play in, and that's the date. So yes, it's future dated, but it's that way because of the database that I have. You want to print the last page of the year-end wage report. And I tell people this, what I normally do is choose my year. I want all of my employees, and I want to print it, and I'll print it to the screen. And once it's finally finished generating, I print the whole thing to a PDF and I save it that way, because I'm not going to print the whole thing to paper, because you can scroll through it and find what you need. You can do fines to go to a particular employee. So there are so many things you can do in PDF and not have to waste paper or store it somewhere or have to shred it because it's out somewhere. So I normally print to the screen and do a PDF. And then once I open up the PDF, I'll go to the last page and just scroll to it. And then I can print it to a secondary PDF if I want to, just the one page, or I can print it to paper for just the summary that's on that last page. But I don't like to leave any of the employee records on paper around because of the private information. I want to print the validation report. It's going in and it's validating that that my addresses are correct. and see if there's any other problems with the employee records for the W-2s that it sees right off the top. You know, there's a penny off on this employee. I'm not worried about the penny offs because it's a rounding problem. That's what you adjust on your 941 reports. But the other problems we want to go look at. So you want to print that validation report. So we need to reconcile the payroll. This is the Excel file I said that you'd be getting for the reconciliation. This is section 4. There's 3 sections above this. So just so you know, this is where I'm going to go key in my 941s for quarter 1, 2, and 3 that I'd already turned in. Key that information in. I'm going to do my quarter end 4 for the information and put it in, and those where it's yellow. And then the system is going to pull in some totals for us from other sections and let me know what the year-end wage file had. So those would pull off from information up above in that section 1, 2, and 3. So if you fill in just the totals to begin with, without doing any other math, then it will pull the information down below. And they're colored for you so that you can see it. It's going to come up and tell you, do I have a difference between my totals for my 941s? And it's also going to put my year-end wage file, that paper that we just printed, or the PDF that I scrolled to get the numbers off of. And it's going to let me know if I have any differences. If I have differences, it's time to go in and start section 1, 2, or 3, depending on where the problem was, to figure out where it's wrong so that I know exactly what I need to do to go try to fix it. So let's talk about some of the possible causes for incorrect tax wages. So the tax box is at the setup level of a pay code, deduction, or benefit was incorrect. If changes are made at the setup level, notice what it says. It will only roll down to the codes where there is no transaction history and the code is active status on the employee. So if I made code changes and there were some records that has transactions that wouldn't have changed those, I would have had to go fix those by hand. Tax boxes at the employee level does not say yes to use the default from setup with adding a code. A payroll transaction didn't have the state or pseudo state filled in appropriately. A payroll adjustment was keyed in correctly. And I'm going to give you a hint. If you've had to do a payroll adjustment and we're now saying it's keyed in incorrectly, 9 times out of 10, you forgot to check the little box that says I'm doing the employer to record the employer portion of the FICA, and it will make the FICA incorrect. So if you go in and reverse the entry that you put in, make a negative check for the one that you already put in, then go back and put it in correctly. And I say use the same check number, but put a dot behind it so you know it's another adjustment. Then you can get those FICAs that you keyed in manually correct. That is the most common mistake keying in a payroll adjustment, is that one little box that messes you up. There was some type of system issue. Something didn't finish posting all the way through. So let's talk about some hints for reconciling. The payroll summary report is not always accurate. And the tables that hold that data are not updated properly if there has been any manual adjustments to that window. The federal wages listed on are not from the same tables as the W-2 numbers are pulled from. So that payroll summary versus what's being pulled for the W-2s are not being pulled from the same tables. It is always safer to do reconciling against either the 941s or the year-end wage report, since those are the reports or the amounts that show up on the reports and are submitted. Is what generates those W-2s. So FICA Medicare wages should equal the total pay code summary less pre-tax deductions from the deduction summary report other than 401k plus taxable benefits. So that's how it calculates FICA Medicare wages. And I'm going to say some, I was going to say on the FICA, that deduction summary, when you're trying to calculate to see if everything's right, if you do not know what's taxable and what's not, I also have a Smart List Builder report that looks at all the companies set up for those so that you could get a list. And the other thing you could do if you wanted it was to drag additional information onto your summary report to know what's taxable and not taxable. That's another way to get that information. So it's a quick visual to know what to use to pull off and figure out that FICA Medicare wages. All right, so the FICA Social Security wages might be lower than FICA Medicare because employees who earn above the FICA Social Security maximum taxable wages. The difference between the two totals can be attributed directly to employees over the FICA Social Security max. Normally, if there's no check mark error on the employee, record or for their pay codes, then that would be a true statement every time. So if all employees are set up correctly, and the only difference I have is between FICA Medicare wages and FICA Social Security wages, I'd be looking for anybody that's owed the FICA Social Security limit and make sure that my difference is exactly those employees. So your federal wages are normally your FICA Medicare wages less retirement deductions, but not Roth. State and local wages usually should equal the federal wages. So some additional steps. You want to verify the box 12 totals on the year-end wage report are correct by comparing to the totals for appropriate codes on the deduction summary and benefit summary reports. I have people that take those deductions, add another tab to that Excel that I'm going to send to y'all, and have the benefits and the deducts right there with the code, add them all up, and have the numbers so I can literally tick them off to know that the numbers are right. So feel free to make changes or add additional columns or whatever you want to do to make sure that those numbers are correct. You want to make sure that the retirement boxes are marked on W-2s for those that have retirement. So you make sure that the employer numbers are properly filled in for federal state IDs. If any of the things that are just listed are not correct, you need to remove the year-end wage file, fix the issues, and create the year-end wage file again. If I was going to have to do this, and I have made changes to those W-2s, I've manually adjusted them, I would want to do a backup again. Because then for the other employees, I could put them back with their address, go look at the addresses, and if anything's changed, get those back in for you by using some SQL scripts, right? And we can get there and get that information and help you get those back to where you were And then all the other employees that had mathematical problems because of the things above, then I can let those go on through. But if I had to fix the addresses, and I don't want to have to manually key all that in again, and I did not fix my employees, then we can get them in that way. If I fix my employee addresses, and that is the only thing I had changed, then when you repull the year-end wage file, it will get those updated addresses and bring them through for you. So if you fixed it in both locations, the W-2, and went ahead and fixed the employee record, that if I had to repull, it does pull those in for you. Which is why I said try to fix it both places, because I know that if I rebuild, I don't want to key that stuff again. All right, so you want to verify your tax sheltered annuity settings on the pay codes, deductions and benefits. And if there are any situations where the tax boxes were differently for employee maintenance level than the company, then you're going to have a problem with those. So we need to be on the lookout for those as well. The method to adjust FICA taxable wages because of pre-tax deductions or marked incorrectly will vary depending on the situation. So if I have to make an adjustment to FICA taxable wages, I want to test my solution over in the test company. So we'd want to take your live company, copy it over to your test company, and key in the adjustment that I'm wanting to do, make sure it makes the changes I want, verify it, and then turn around and do it in production. And if I need to do an employee by employee verification, comparing my federal wages to state, you might want to modify one of the W-2s, and normally one wide formats, in Report Writer so that all important numbers and employee IDs are printed on one line, and then print the report to a file. And if I do that, then I can play with it in Excel and go in and verify, do some VLOOKUPs to see if things are the same, or do the exact command to see if it's the same, and verify that everything has the exact same values. So it's a quick way of doing it. The other way of doing it is Debbie's Smart List Builder reports, if you have Smart List Builder, and I can pull, I have a file that will pull it side by side, and you can do the verifications. This is how you can do it and modify it, and then go use this to go in and run and review those numbers. So the federal wages listed on the employee summary are not from the same table as the W-2 numbers. So fixing the field in the employee summary does not help the W-2s. So that's really important to remember, that if I just go in and fix my employee summary, it does not fix my W-2s and the problems in it, because the W-2s are looking at the individual transactions and summing them up, and looking at the tax rules in which were in play at the time in which that record was created. If both the federal and FICA wages are off, the problem lies somewhere in a pre-tax deduction or a pay code having tax boxes marked incorrectly. So if you're trying to figure out why, then, and both of them are wrong, then I need to go in and start looking at the pay codes or deduction codes. If only federal wages are off, it's normally a 401k deduction. So you want to remove the year-end file for those mistakes we just talked about and make the corrections. And You want to create a magnetic file if required. In these days, everybody's pretty much required if you have more than 2 employees. Then you'd want to launch the AccuWage program. Now, the AccuWage is normally put on the person's computer that it's going to be the one pushing the file in. When you're pushing it in and it finds some other problems, it's going to alert you. And then you're going to have to go back and correct those and rebuild that magnetic file. You want to add the W-2s to fix, the problems that AccuWage came up with. Then I want to print those W-2s. I'm going to print the W-3s. I'm doing it in plural because some companies have more than one legal entity, so more than one database, and they're printing all these forms. And you want to submit that magnetic media, the final file, back up post changes being made to it. Once I've gotten everything up to IRS, Social Security, install the payroll tax tables for the new year. You want to verify that your FUTA and SUTA tax tables are correct. If I had any 1095-C reports that are required, then I'm going to want to print those. So at this time, Don's going to give us poll question 3.
Awesome. Thank you, Debbie. Our third poll question is, which of the following solutions does LBMC Technology Solutions offer? Hosted GP, Business Central, Sage Intacct, or all of the above? Give you a few more moments. And the correct answer is all of the above. At LBMC Technology Solutions, we offer Hosted GP, Business Central, and Sage Intacct as cloud solutions. So thank you, Debbie. It's back to you.
All right, so we're going to go through some other payroll tips. You already loaded the tax tables for the new year and then need to recreate the year-end wage file. We need to go to that payroll tax and we need to go look at it. You're going to need to edit the Social Security wage limit to last year's limit if it is changed. Recreate the file. So let's talk about changing that Social Security wage limit back to the current year's limit. So I'm going to go to that payroll tax location. And here's I'm going to put in the tax code I need. And then I need to make the changes. So the next screen is going to tell you how to go about doing this. So I put in the tax code. And then I'm going to come down and I'm going to do the filing status. And then I'm going to go up there and make sure it's not applicable. And then I'm going to go down to tables. Now eventually get down to where I can go in and change the maximum. This is where I say, take a screenshot of what it is. So when I get done, I can put it back to what it was when that payroll tax file got uploaded. To reprint the quarterly reports after the year is done, you're going to change your system date to reflect the year for which you need to print the quarterly reports for. So the system date is in that bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If each individual person is into GP, again, that's the date it's looking at. And then I'm going to go and choose my quarterly reports, and I can print them. Some people, not very often, because their database is getting very large and they want to get rid of inactive employees and not keep their history in the system anymore. This was built for those people that had lots and lots of records, multiple years of data. I have some that's been on Great Plains since 1993. Their data is large, okay? And they wanted to be able to purge data, and they would get rid of some inactive employee records. They've since got company data archive, and they just move it to an archive company, and they continue on and just run their payroll for a couple, a few years are left behind over in the production database. So instead of inactivating and removing, they just move things to a history database. So you have two options if I want to clean up and get my database smaller. And they finally chose to quit purging data, removing data, and do this other solution. But some people say, I don't need inactive employees that have not been here in the last 10 years and get rid of their records. Before I did that, I would make sure that I had any of the information about them, the W-2 saved, all the data saved, and then I'm going to purge it out. Because the only thing they're ever going to come back and ask you for normally is they're being audited and they need an old copy of a W-2. So as long as I have that information, removing an inactive employee is not a major issue, but not having that data and they come back and they need it for whatever audit purposes is painful for all. So if you use human resources attendance or employee self-service is being used, pay periods or pay schedules for the new year must be set up. That also holds true for some of the clock programs like Time Matrix. They require to have the periods to be set up for the new year as well. If using GP PTO Manager, you may need to do a year-end process to implement auto calendar year calculations. So let's talk about alignment issues. The W-2s or any other form in GP needs a slight adjustment, and adjust this with a print dialog box. So it normally appears after you press the print button. On a day-to-day process, it is not on. So we need to learn how to turn it on. So we have to change a command in the dex.ini file. Normally, if y'all want it turned on, you call us and we fix it, but here are the steps to do it. Once we get in there, we're going to add this. We're looking for this, and I need to change the line that says no print dialog equals true to say no print dialog equals false, which will make that little window come up. If it does not exist, you want to add it to the end of the file. Then you want to save and relaunch Great Plains. Now, this is the very important part. If I'm using a remote desktop, if I'm using Citrix, if I'm going in and it's a cloud location that your GP is being saved up in the cloud and you're logging in that way, everybody has to be out when you're editing that dex.ini file. Some people think that you only have one remote desktop connection to their server or only one Citrix box. Companies do what they call balancing. So they only let so many people on one remote, and they get then the next the next person that's trying to log in goes to the next remote desktop. They do the same thing with Citrix. They're trying to balance the load so the system runs smoother with less hiccups. It runs a little faster, right? So if I need to make that change, I need to contact IT to make that change so they can fix it on every remote, plus the SQL server and every Citrix across the board. So if that needs to be added, we need to drag IT in to make sure that all locations are updated. And then when I'm done, they need to go back and change it back to being true instead of the false that we need to say. So let's work on that alignment issue. You want to print the W-2s to the screen. You want to choose the printer icon button on the top left. And then I want to print a dialog box with horizontal and vertical alignments will appear on the right. So you want to adjust. So below the different situations, I think everybody can read, I'm either going to go, plus or minus, depending on what the solution is, to move things a few pixels left or a few pixels right, or up and down. But you'll have this in your printout and you can move things accordingly till you can get it where you need it. Once you figure out what your solution is, you might want to jot it down, because if I need to reprint some of these W-2 for a reason, I'm going to need those answers. So whatever the solution is, make sure you jot it down, and also jot which printer you were printing on, because those are your settings for the way the paper's pulling on that particular printer. Okay. So rate changes. This is what I've found, and this is what I have seen in the file. So I did this a few weeks ago, and it wasn't out and published yet. But this is what is out there, is that the FICA Social Security wage limit is going to go to 160,200 in 2023 to 167,700 for 2024. And this is in that rate table, by the way. The FUTA rate or wage limit changes need to be done manually in Microsoft Dynamics GP, and I tell you where to go find it and make those changes. Normally you get a letter telling you what your rates are going to be, and that's what you're going to use to go in and update with. The 401k limits are changing this year. We're going up to 23,000 is the max, and from 22.5 in 2023. The catch up is remaining the same of 7,500. So if somebody is doing catch up and doing the maximum for 2024, they can put 30,500 if over the age of 50 or over. And this happens to be what they were in 2023. So we're going to do poll question 4.
Well, this is our last poll question of the day. And this one is, I'm interested in learning more about network security, Microsoft Copilot, Power Apps, dimensional reporting, BI, business intelligence, or D365 CRM, or other. Give everyone a few moments, all of which, by the way, these are things that LBMC can help you with. Just a few more moments. And I'm going to end the poll. Looks like everything got checked. So that's great to hear. Be on the lookout for more information on those topics from us. And it's back to you, Debbie.
Well, we're down to, get my box to hit the arrow. Any questions? Anything you want to throw at me that you have a question about that we've gone over I will say this, I will be available. You can write out, and I'm going to go to the next screen. If you write out to info@LBMC Tech, it will be forwarded on, and we can help you with payroll questions as you're doing payroll. I mean, I've set up and I'm helping some people do their payroll year-end close. I do it help them every year, just because make sure they don't miss a step. Some just want to know how to use the Excel file to help them reconcile. So whatever it may be, we are out here to help you any way we can to make sure that your payroll close goes smooth in any type of close or any other problem you might have as well. But do y'all have any questions that are left that haven't been answered? I think Dawn hasn't seen any questions in the Q&A.
No, I don't see any questions in the Q&A. If you have a question, we'll hang on here for just a couple of seconds for you to get that entered in. But otherwise, while we're doing that, I'll just repeat our housekeeping, and that is within 48 hours, you should get an email with the recording of the webinar, a copy of the slides, as well as a link to the survey. And then Debbie told you about the 2 additional items. Oh, we have a question. Debbie, what is the year-end service pack?
The year-end service pack has everything that might have changed for running the payroll close or any other close in the system to meet the standards. It might be because IRS made some modification and the magnetic media file needs to be a little bit different to go through their system. It could be any of those small type things that are out there, which are big things if you're trying to push data, that need to happen to get on your system so that your payroll will meet all the qualifications that Social Security needs to get it in. SSA needs to get their files in and reporting done.
Very good. Well, that's it. Wait, hang on, one more. Is there a service pack for 2023?
Your service pack is all inclusive. So anything that would have needed to be in is going to be in the service pack that came out this year end. If you're in 18, a version of GP 18, 18.3 or greater, those service packs will fix everything. It also fixes your 1099s, by the way. Okay. So that service pack for 18.3 forward, if we put it on, it's cumulative of all the fixes that you needed for all the prior years, all the way back to 18.3 version of Great Plains. It's all inclusive.
It looks like that's it. Thank you, Debbie. We really appreciate your time and expertise today.
Well, thank you for people attending. And if you have questions, please just reach out and any of us will be glad to help you out.